Trump as the 47th President of the United States of America. He is mercurial. He may be considered controversial. The Economist magazine described him as the biggest danger to the world. So he has been described in many ways. A significant aspect of these elections was that the incumbent governments did not win the elections. And the parties which won the elections were mostly in the far right. In a way, saying goodbye to liberal policies and to toleration in many spheres of public life. For example, Austria, where the People's Party was rightist enough, the winning party was even more to the right than the People's Party. In South Africa, for instance, Nelson Mandela's African National Party lost support and had to go into elections, a coalition with the opposition parties. In India, Narendra Modi's BJP also lost its parliamentary majority and was forced to form a coalition government. Even the 27-member European Union saw conservative populist parties in power. The result was that liberal policies have been rolled back, especially in the social sectors. This is reflected in what Donald Trump has said since he has taken power. With his mercurial temperament, as I said, on the very first day of his presidency, through executive orders, he reversed many existing policies of the United States. His aspirations are reflected in his assertions with respect to Canada, to Mexico, to the Gulf of Mexico, to the Panama Canal, which he wants to control again and own again, and of course, with respect to Greenland, which he offered to purchase in the year 2019. And all this has changed the rules of the game as we know them in international politics. But as we look back at the year 2024, the most worrying and significant event has been the carnage in Gaza and in Palestine overall. The carnage with impunity which has been carried out, affecting the entire politics of the Middle East. It was an attempt to wipe out the Palestinians from the face of the earth. We can also recall what happened to Sheikh Hasina Wajid, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, who had to flee to India. To discuss this subject today, we have two distinguished speakers, and it is my privilege to introduce them. Lieutenant General Khalid Ahmed Kidwai has spent his life in the military service of Pakistan. He was, you would be interested to know, he was in combat action in East Pakistan during the civil war at that time, and he was also a prisoner of war in India from 1971 to 1973. After the May 1998 nuclear test by Pakistan, He pioneered the establishment of Pakistan's National Command Authority, and he was the founding Director General of the Strategic Plans Division, where he served for over 15 years. And he conceived and executed Pakistan's nuclear policy and deterrence doctrines. He put in place state-of-the-art command and control systems, as well as an effective nuclear security regime for Pakistan's strategic assets. He is the architect of Pakistan's Civilian Nuclear Energy Vision 2050, many years to go, which will provide Pakistan with electricity, as well as the National Space Program 2047. Lieutenant General Khalid Kidwai has received the highest military and civilian honors awards in Pakistan. It is my privilege also to introduce Syed Hasan Habib, the former ambassador of Pakistan. He has had a career in diplomacy spanning 28 years, and he has served in numerous countries. His most significant assignments were as Consul General in China and Ambassador of Pakistan to North Korea. Ambassador Hasan Habib is a researcher, he's a scholar. He's currently serving as Senior Fellow at the Center for Policy and Area Studies at the Institute of Business Management in Karachi. He is also a prolific writer, and including South China Sea, China Needs Friends, Are Emerging Alliances a Threat to the US, and North Korean Crisis, Chances for a Diplomatic Solution. I will first ask Lieutenant General Khalid Kidwai to take the floor.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dr. Masuma Hasan, Ambassador Syed Hasan Habib, ladies and gentlemen, can I be heard? Assalamu alaikum and good evening. I am very happy to have been invited to speak on a subject that is critical to peace and war, not only in our crisis-prone South Asia, but also in the larger region around us and perhaps in the world at large. When we look at the year 2024 in retrospect, with particular reference to nuclear developments during the year and their regional and global impact, it will be relevant in the interest of perspective and continuity to make these assessments, keeping in view the broader background to these developments, so as to link the year 2024 logically with the past. While Pakistan's nuclear deterrence capability has always been a cornerstone of Pakistan's national security for the past many decades, it has of late assumed even greater significance in the challenging geopolitical and strategic environment which has emerged rapidly in Pakistan's neighborhood in the last 6 years particularly. Pakistan, in a sense, has been riding a geopolitical roller coaster of sorts. Therefore, before reviewing nuclear developments in the year 2024 for their regional and global impact, I would first like to take a broader overview of the emerging strategic environments in and around Pakistan to keep things in perspective. In this context, we may not go too far back, but we must consider the following 6 events in the last 6 years in and around Pakistan's neighborhood in order to get a feel of the challenges that Pakistan faces. First, the Balakot-Rajouri exchange of strategic airstrikes on 26th and 27th February 2019 between the Indian Air Force and the Pakistan Air Force, consequent to India's aggressive politico-military posture just before the Indian elections May 2019. The two-day skirmish did not turn out too well for India. While the IAF failed to achieve its objective of striking the alleged terrorist camps at Balakot in mainland Pakistan, the skirmish resulted in the downing of 2 IAF aircraft by the Pakistan Air Force a MiG-21 Bison and an Su-30, and capture of an IEF pilot, Wing Commander Abhinandan. A well-timed meeting of Pakistan's National Command Authority at the Strategic Plans Division, which is responsible for the command and control of Pakistan's nuclear weapons, sent strong signals of deterrence to India and the world and helped in restricting further spiral in hostilities. While Pakistan's nuclear deterrence worked, India's irresponsible conduct as a nuclear power nevertheless stood exposed before the world. The major departure in the skirmish was that for the first time since 1971, India crossed the international airspace and attacked mainland Pakistan as against the established norm of land or air skirmishes on the Kashmir line of control. Second, the aggressive Indian politico-military posture against Pakistan was soon balanced strategically in the summer of 2020 by India's somewhat forgotten military fiascos against China in Galwan, Ladakh, and Arunachal Pradesh, creating a dilemma of a two-front war for India. At the strategic and military levels, the development carries serious security and operational ramifications for not only India's northern front against China, but also for India's western front with Pakistan, the line of control in Kashmir, and of course Siachen. China cut India and its humiliated military to size in the full glare of international publicity without firing a bullet. The Indian military, being built up by the West to become a net security provider in the region, was humiliated by China with prehistoric war-fighting tools, sticks, hammers, swords, and stones. The US and the West simply watched. They made no attempt whatsoever to come to India's help. India was let down not only by its military but also by its so-called international friends. India felt compelled to restore the ceasefire on the line of control with Pakistan in order to offset the possibility of a two-front war scenario. In my opinion, strategic stability between the two nuclear powers of South Asia was well served with advantage to Pakistan. Third, the US withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021 led to fair expectations in Pakistan of improved security environments on the western border. Unfortunately, that was not to be. The Afghan Taliban soon turned on their benefactor of over 4 decades, resulting in deteriorating internal and external security situation on Pakistan's western borders and in the western provinces. The Afghan Taliban's perfidy with Pakistan has resulted in serious policy and physical clashes. India has fully exploited the bad blood situation between Pakistan and Afghanistan by funding and arming the TTP as well as the Balochistan militancy. This in some ways is a consequence of Pakistan's robust nuclear capability having seriously curtailed India's offensive military options on Pakistan's eastern borders. Fourth, India's unwarranted attack on Pakistani territory by a nuclear-capable BrahMos missile in March 2022, to which Pakistan did not retaliate in kind but preferred to handle it politically and diplomatically. Notwithstanding India's false claim that it was an accidental launch, the attack remains yet another demonstrated milestone in India's irresponsible conduct as a nuclear power. At the very least, the incident reflects alarmingly on India's system of command and control of its nuclear arsenal. Fifth, Iran's missile strikes on Pakistani territory near Panjgor in Balochistan in January 2024 were rather perplexing. Iran, a non-nuclear power, long enjoying supposedly friendly relations with brotherly Pakistan, violated nuclear-armed Pakistan's territorial integrity without any worthwhile provocation. Pakistan was left with little choice but to retaliate with appropriate counterstrikes inside Iran in order to restore the superior deterrence value of Pakistan's conventional and strategic forces. Pakistan could not have afforded to buckle under and accept the dilution of its deterrence. The inbuilt message of Pakistan's counter-strikes on Iran brought Iran's foreign minister rushing to Islamabad within a week to calm down the tensions and back off. However, when we see the incident in the context of Iran's continued conduct of allowing India's RAW to freely operate unhindered from Chabahar and against Pakistan, as in the arrest of the Indian Navy's commander Kulbhushan Jadev and the continuing freedom of and sanctuaries for the Baloch militants to operate from Irani territory against Balochistan, one seriously wonders as to what to make of Iran's policies. And sixth, while the foregoing events on Pakistan's eastern and western borders are disconcerting and a reflection of the challenging strategic and geopolitical environments, a positive development is the emerging Pakistan-Bangladesh rapprochement in the works, with inherent possibilities of mutual strategic, political, and economic benefits. The development certainly has India worried. In addition to the foregoing developments in our immediate eastern and western neighborhoods, there are important lessons to be drawn for a nuclear power like Pakistan from the two ongoing high attrition wars in Ukraine, the Middle East, and West Asia, to include the genocidal war in Gaza and Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, and Iran. The fundamental lesson for Pakistan coming out of the Ukraine war is the criticality of the retention of a strong nuclear capability as a strategic deterrence for Pakistan's national security and survival. When the former USSR collapsed, Ukraine, in a moment of strategic insanity, gave up almost 2,000 nuclear weapons, and the consequences are there for everyone to see. Lesson: Pakistan must continue to preserve and strengthen its nuclear capabilities against all potential threats, withstand and rebuff all international pressures, and never ever allow the slightest doubt to creep into its national and strategic determination about the centrality and criticality of its nuclear program for national security and survival. Pakistan has had that strategic clarity for 52 years through successive governments, irrespective of the politics of the day, and must continue to retain that clarity forever. The rapidly emerging political and military developments in West Asia have now assumed special significance for Pakistan when read in conjunction with some of the recent US actions and statements against Pakistan's nuclear and missile program. These need to be taken and monitored with the utmost seriousness. Pakistan needs to watch very carefully the strategic developments taking place rapidly in West Asia, where many of the presumed buffer states are seemingly in a state of political and military disarray and meltdown, creating strategic vacuums. The emerging strategic vacuums will then leave Pakistan's security exposed to inimical forces in West Asia, in addition to the existing situation with India in the East. In the geopolitical milieu of today's global order, or perhaps disorder, it is China as the emerging superpower which poses multiple challenges to the US in the political, economic, military, and technological spheres. More than a kinetic military war, China is now preparing itself for the trade war, which might be resumed by President Trump from where he left it in 2020. A trade war between the two superpowers will have strategic and economic consequences for South Asia as well, for both India and Pakistan. Pakistanis should thank our elders of many, many decades ago who took the strategic decision of befriending China. The vision of that stroke of genius bears fruit today, and Pakistan, in my opinion, will find itself on the right side of history in the coming years and decades, though much more needs to be done by Pakistan today to cash in on the historic advantage that it has inherited. Now, what are the emerging challenges for Pakistan, especially because of Pakistan's traditional and strong strategic relationship with China on the one hand, as well as a long history of transactional relationship with the US on the other hand? Is a balancing act possible that would work to serve Pakistan's national interests? How should Pakistan, in the context of its security interest, view and respond to the clear strategic choice that the US has made in over 2 decades by now of propping up India as a counterweight to China? In the context of South Asia, we need to understand and register the strategic reality of the vital strategic balance that Pakistan is compelled to maintain in the nuclear equation with India as the determinant of the state of strategic stability in South Asia, particularly given the asymmetry in conventional forces. For the last many decades, it has become a Pakistani responsibility by default not to allow the South Asian strategic balance to be disturbed to Pakistan's disadvantage, despite India's persistent efforts to undo it at every opportunity. Pakistan's policy of maintaining and strengthening the policy of full spectrum deterrence in the nuclear field is therefore central to the retention of strategic balance in South Asia. The criticality of adhering to that policy is reinforced by the 8 major geopolitical developments in and around Pakistan that I have just highlighted, some of these directly on Pakistani soil or on Pakistan's eastern and western borders. The policy of full spectrum deterrence has enforced peace on our eastern borders, howsoever fragile it might seem. Now, after taking a comprehensive review of the emerging strategic environments in and around Pakistan over the last 6 odd years, without going too far back, we can now connect the dots with the year 2024 as we look at it in retrospect. I shall highlight the nuclear developments that took place in 2024 with particular reference to Pakistan, as also assess the regional and global impact. With reference to Pakistan, there are 6 events of 2024 which need to be recapped. Of these, 3 are good news stories and 3 are not so good stories. First, the good news stories. The Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission in 2024 continued to successfully and continuously operate Pakistan's 6 civil nuclear power plants, all installed with the assistance of our ever-reliable friend China, all completed on an average 6 months ahead of time, and all operated entirely by Pakistani nuclear engineers. These include the 4 nuclear power plants at Chashma near Miawali, with a total capacity of 1330 megawatts, and the 2 newly commissioned Canap 2 and Canap 3 power plants at Paradise Point, Karachi, with a total capacity of 2200 megawatts. Altogether, in 2024, the 6 nuclear power plants provided national grid with 3530 megawatts of clean, reliable, safe, and relatively cheap electricity. I would count this national achievement as a silent but major Pakistani success story of 2024. Second, still with the civil nuclear energy program and good news, the year 2024 saw the commencement of construction of a new nuclear power plant, Chashma 5, with a capacity of 1200 megawatts. This too in collaboration with China. It will be completed inshallah in 2030. These successive nuclear power plants are being constructed within the scope of a program called Nuclear Energy Vision 2050, which was conceived by the SPD in 2011 and was developed by the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission for implementation. Nuclear Energy Vision 2050, which is self-financing and self-sustaining, visualizes the production of 42,000 megawatts of electricity by the year 2050 through the installation of 29 nuclear power plants spread across the 4 provinces. The vision was approved by Pakistan's National Command Authority in 2011. To put the target of 42,000 megawatts of electricity in some perspective, while Pakistanis have agonized over the construction of the 3600 megawatts Kalabagh Dam for nearly 70 years, in contrast, Nuclear Energy Vision 2050 will inshallah deliver in the next 25 years 42,000 megawatts, which is the equivalent to nearly 11 Kalabagh dams. I think there is life beyond Kalabagh Dam, and Pakistan needs to stay the course with Nuclear Energy Vision 2050. Third, still staying with good stories, Pakistan's space program, which has strong strategic linkages with the nuclear program, in addition to critical uses for civil purposes, attained a takeoff stage in 2024. After years of dedicated and sustained effort by the SPD and Suparco, Pakistan has been successful with Chinese assistance to place a number of satellites in space in the last 2 decades. These include communication satellites, Earth observation satellites with 0.5 meter resolution for imagery purposes, and a few others. You perhaps might have read about the indigenously built EO-1 satellite launched by Pakistan earlier this month. Unfortunately, the pre-SPD story of the space program and Suparco is abysmal. It was only after the SPD brought Suparco under its wings in 2001 from the cabinet division that the space program got winds in its sails and started to deliver. Today, the space program follows yet another visionary program called Pakistan Space Vision 2047, which too was approved by the National Command Authority in 2011. Now, talking about the regional and global impact of the two foregoing visions for nuclear energy and for space. The greatest impact that we have been able to generate on certain regional and international powers, which would like to isolate Pakistan strategically, is to demonstrate to them Pakistan's strategic will to attain and retain strategic autonomy when it comes to national security. By staying the course, brushing off pressures, and forging ahead on both the critical national programs, we have further demonstrated that Pakistan has a valued strategic partner in China, which will not allow Pakistan to be isolated. This demonstration was particularly necessary when in 2008, the US mainstreamed India in the international nuclear order by rushing through an exemption or waiver for India by the nuclear suppliers group of the NSG, while denying the same to Pakistan. This unequal and discriminatory treatment was balanced by Pakistan through the determined Pakistan-China cooperation in the nuclear energy and space programs. The result has been that over time, the attempts to isolate Pakistan in these two areas have been managed well by Pakistan, and the international efforts have by and large lost steam. I'll now move on to a few negative events that occurred in 2024 with which Pakistan has had to grapple and will inshallah continue to grapple successfully. These negative events in a series of 5 sub-events as part of one larger and linked plot targeted Pakistan's strategic missiles program in the usual discriminatory manner that Pakistan has got so used to ever since Pakistan embarked on the nuclear program in 1972. The international plot remains oblivious and insensitive to Pakistan's genuine security concerns with India, and of course generously ignores India's much larger missile and space program. Perhaps some of you may have followed these developments of 2024 in the media. Briefly, the 5 sub-events of the broader anti-Pakistan push were as follows. First, on 12 September 2024, the US imposed sanctions on a Chinese research institute and several Chinese companies it said have been involved in supplying Pakistan's ballistic missile program, especially the long-range Shaheen-3, the range of 2,750 kilometers, and the 2,000 kilometers Ababil MIRV systems. MIRV stands for Multiple Independently Targeting Re-entry Vehicle, meaning that one Ababil missile carries multiple nuclear warheads. Pakistan strongly rejected the charge of being the recipient of the so-called supplies. Second, on 18th December 2024, the US sanctioned one government and 3 private sector Pakistani entities for being allegedly involved in the development of weapons of mass destruction. This absurd allegation too was rejected by Pakistan as perplexing. Pakistan is a declared nuclear weapons power since May 1998, as indeed is India. Both countries are not signatories to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT. Pakistan has a robust and vibrant indigenous nuclear missile program, which is well known to the world. Why then suddenly Pakistani entities needed to be sanctioned for being involved in the development of so-called weapons of mass destruction defies logic and can be placed in the category of a malefied act. Third, interestingly, in an act of blatant discrimination as well as stretching favoritism and absurdity to its extreme, the US on 15 January 2025, this month, almost simultaneously actually removed 3 Indian nuclear entities from the sanctions list. These included Indian Rare Earths, the Indira Gandhi Atomic Research Center, and Bhabha Atomic Research Center, all 3 involved in the developments of weapons of mass destruction. But then such are the ways of the world. Fourth, in a similar vein, one will recall the frequent incidents which continue to occur in India regarding a string of thefts and smuggling of uranium for sale on the international black market by organized cartels as well as by individuals. These are most benignly ignored by the US and other Western governments, despite the strong potential for the stolen uranium falling into terrorist hands for purposes of making dirty bombs. Alhamdulillah, due to Pakistan's strong nuclear security measures, Not a single story of a similar activity has ever emerged from Pakistan. One can imagine the hell that will break loose internationally if such an incident were to happen in Pakistan. Pakistan's chief concern ought to be to highlight to the international community the possibility of a dirty bomb incident based on India's smuggled uranium being sponsored by inimical forces as a false flag operation and then pinning the blame on Pakistan. Fifth, on 19th December 2024, and this one takes the cake, a new debate was sparked in Washington with regard to Pakistan's intentions about its ballistic missiles program when John Feiner, the outgoing US Deputy National Security Advisor, gave a talk at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. And Mr. Feiner said, Pakistan has pursued increasingly sophisticated missile technology from long-range ballistic missile systems to equipment that would enable the testing of significantly larger rocket motors. If those trends continue, Pakistan will have the capability to strike targets well beyond South Asia, including in the United States. The number of nuclear-armed states with missiles that can reach the US homeland is very small, and they tend to be adversarial. He continued, naming Russia, North Korea, and China. So candidly, it's hard for us to see Pakistan's actions as anything other than an emerging threat to the United States, said Mr. Feiner. Now, when we link the 5 sub-events, that is, the sequential sanctions against the Chinese and Pakistani entities, along with the almost simultaneous removal of similar sanctions against Indian entities directly involved in the production of so-called weapons of mass destruction, followed a day later by the loaded but absurd allegation of Pakistan's long-range missiles becoming a direct threat to the US, the whole package as a sinister plot paints a clear picture of blatant discrimination and bias by the US against Pakistan's nuclear and missile program while fully cooperating in the development of India's nuclear program. In this regard, I would like to say that for over 5 decades, since 1974, Pakistan has learned to live with US and Western sanctions generally and against its nuclear program specifically. There's nothing new in it. I think it's a straightforward case of chronic indigestion which refuses to go away. The good news is that in practical terms, on ground, these sanctions are worthless, meaningless, because Pakistan never has and till today it does not depend on US or Western suppliers for technology or equipment. Pakistan's nuclear and missile program has, alhamdulillah, matured over 5 decades to a point that today it is indigenous, and that is its inherent strength. What is new, however, and once again, if I may use the words perplexing and absurd, is the US insinuation that Pakistan's missile program is in pursuit of long ranges that may target the US itself. The insinuation is mind-boggling. Why on earth would Pakistan, in all its sanity, want to commit a national suicide by bringing the sole superpower of the world, the United States of America, in its crosshair defies all bounds of logic. The US is 12,000 kilometers from Pakistan. I'm lost for words as to which of Pakistan's modest range missile systems, which barely cover India, Mr. Feiner had in mind before going public with such a profound charge. The only conclusion that I can possibly draw is that the Indian lobby in the US, which has not only attained a very strong voice in the US, but has also penetrated and acquired important placements in the US industry, bureaucracy, and the government, is now in a position to influence and shape US policies to its advantage, at least in South Asia. It has likely sponsored this new bogey of Pakistan's nuclear and missile program becoming a threat to the US itself in the dying days of the Biden administration, basically perhaps to flag the allegation as a future agenda point for follow-up by the incoming Trump administration, which of course now consists of, as already announced, some key senior office holders who are on record as being strongly pro-India. Pakistan's leadership and diplomacy has its work cut out and will have to face the challenges squarely. Before I end, I'll briefly mention 3 nuclear developments on the international scene in 2024, not linked to Pakistan or South Asia. One pertains to the war in Ukraine, while 2 pertain to the Middle East. First, in the Ukraine war in May and June 2024, in an effort to discourage the West from ramping up support for Ukraine, Russia and Belarus conducted tactical nuclear weapons drills as a message to the West that in extreme situations Russia could resort to the use of tactical nukes. Russia had been warning about the possibility since 2022, but then upped the ante in 2024 to further impose caution. The West, however, did not take the message seriously and continued arming Ukraine. Earlier in November 23, Russia had announced that it was withdrawing its ratification of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, the CTBT. It was a signal to the West that Russia would be free to conduct nuclear tests of a variety of nuclear weapons as it deemed fit. The withdrawal of the CTBT ratification also brought Russia's position at par with the USA, which has signed but not ratified the CTBT. This first step by Russia in the nuclear realm in 2023 had apparently not impressed the West. And so in conjunction with Belarus, Russia took the next step on the escalatory ladder of signaling the use of tactical nuclear weapons. Thereafter, however, as the US November elections approached, Russia probably decided to go slow on nuclear signaling in anticipation or hope of a Trump victory. As it turned out, the Russian gamble and exercising nuclear restraint paid off with a Trump victory. President Trump, of course, is committed to end the Ukraine war soonest, as indeed he has ended the Israeli war of genocide in Gaza, even before his formal inauguration, by a simple threat to both Hamas and Israel. Second, in the Middle East, in continuation of its war against Hamas and Hezbollah all through 2024, Israel toyed seriously with launching airstrikes to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities. When Iran twice launched missile and drone strikes against Israel, Israel retaliated with conventional airstrikes against Iran's military infrastructure, especially against Iran's air defenses, as a possible prelude to airstrikes against Iran's nuclear facilities. For some days and weeks, the possibility seemed like a touch-and-go affair, but Israel stopped just short of such strikes, possibly on the advice of the US. Third, again in the Middle East, I shall mention only in passing yet another nuclear development of 2024. On the nuclear front, this, a positive one, is the realm of nuclear energy for civilian use. For some years now, there is an encouraging trend in the Middle East to diversify energy sources beyond oil. The UAE pioneered the trend in 2009 by signing a contract with South Korea for 4 nuclear reactors of 1400 megawatts each, making a total of 5600 megawatts. Accurate cost estimates are not available and vary from $20 to $32 billion. 3 out of the 4 plants, all under IAEA safeguards and located at Barakah in Abu Dhabi, were sequentially commissioned in 2021, 22, and 2023. The 4th one was commissioned last year in September 2024. A point of interest that I would like to highlight on a comparative basis between Pakistan and the UAE is the importance and value of decision-making and availability of funds. I stated earlier with much pride that Pakistan today produces 3530 megawatts of nuclear energy from 6 power plants at Chashma and Karachi. These 6 plants were constructed over 30 years from 92 to 2022 and generate 3530 megawatts. And here is the UAE, awash with cash and quick decision making, producing 5600 megawatts from 4 nuclear power plants constructed over 14 years from 2009 to 2024. Also in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, taking a cue from the UAE, is now seriously considering a nuclear energy as an additional diversified energy source. In fact, one of the preconditions that the Saudis have placed in the Abraham Accords for recognition of Israel is the provision of nuclear power plants. It remains to be seen if the Saudis will be allowed to move on that path. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to recap a few points that I have made. Pakistan's security environments have always been under variable pressure for most part of our existence, and Pakistan's strategic planners have responded to these in their wisdom from time to time. If there's one aspect that stands out, it is that having established a robust nuclear capability articulated through the policy of full spectrum deterrence, Pakistan has closed the doors to large-scale wars with India, perhaps forever. This is central to Pakistan's national security and a huge achievement that Pakistan, despite relative asymmetry in the conventional force equation, has literally enforced and compelled peace in South Asia. That this success has deflected India into low-cost warfare on our western borders and western provinces is something that Pakistani planners must seriously worry about and develop more coherent response options in the socio-politico-military fields in order to restore true overall peace and stability. I have highlighted both good and not so good stories of 2024 in the domain of nuclear Pakistan. The future, as always, will remain challenging, which is the outcome, in part, of Pakistan's strategic and central geographic location as a trade and strategic corridor to Central Asia, in part because of Pakistan's robust relationship with China, whose rise is unfortunately seen as a threat by the US, and in part because of Pakistan's determination not to compromise ever on its nuclear program. Pakistan has its work cut out to work in all sincerity, wisdom, and energy to enhance the critical elements of its national power potential, including the economy and healthy national cohesion. In my assessment, the year 2024 in retrospect has by and large been a fairly normal regulation year. This I say strictly from the point of view of the topic given to me, that is nuclear developments and their regional global impact. While this informed audience is very familiar with the history of Pakistan's strategic and geopolitical environments over the many decades of Pakistan's existence, I have linked only the preceding period of the last 6 years with the year 2024 in order to frame the events within the context of the immediate geopolitical background. It is in that context that I describe 2024 as a normal regulation year. If some of the events that I have highlighted had not taken place, I think the year would probably have been quite boring. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, General Kidwai, for this very powerful presentation in which you have so lucidly described the aims, objectives, and successes of Pakistan's nuclear policy and also nuclear developments at the international level. And now it's my pleasure to request Ambassador Hasan Habib to take the floor.
Chairperson Dr. Masuma Hasan, Lieutenant General Kidwai, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. At the onset, I would like to thank Chairperson Dr. Masuma and Dr. Tanveer Khalid and their team to offer me this opportunity to speak to you. It's a real honor for me to speak at PIIA, and in fact, today's topic that I will be speaking is very simple because everybody knows about it. General Kidwai was fortunate that his topic had so many details that very few people could understand and speak. But my topics that I will cover will be 2024 challenges for Pakistan and some responses. So, and I hope that I have made it a very simple speech so that we can have more details during our discussion and question and answer. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan grappled with significant political unrest, economic challenges, and security issues throughout 2024. Political instability following the general election, legal reforms, and rising economic pressure compounded the nation's difficulties, affecting its foreign policy and effectiveness and international standing. The multifaceted challenge underscored the intricate balance Pakistan sought to maintain in its foreign policy, striving to uphold national interests and evolving regional and global dynamics. I will start with the foreign policy challenges with permission from my two seniors sitting here, ambassadors. That these challenges tested our diplomatic agility and strategic resilience. Needless to state that in the absence of a common national narrative on key issues, our foreign policy application remains rather weak. Plus, our track record is not very consistent. An inherent weakness of our political and economic policies impact our international acceptance. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like briefly to touch upon some of the serious issues from the target year 2024. These are tension with the neighboring countries. sorry to say, a very common saying that except Arabian Sea, no neighbor is happy with us. Iran. In January 2024, Iran conducted missile strikes. General Kidwai has detailed it in Balochistan province, targeting militants from Baloch separatist group Jaish al-Adl. Pakistan condemned these strikes as an unprovoked violation of its airspace. In retaliation, Pakistan launched its own airstrikes in Sistan, Balochistan province of Iran, targeting Baloch insurgent groups. Both nations eventually agreed to de-escalate and restore diplomatic relations. I was in Tehran, Iran for 1 week, talking to everybody. In October 2023, we talked with think tanks, military people. At that time, it was all goody-goody. And in January, all of a sudden, something happened that Iran had to attack. This is very mind-boggling, and at least a simple person like me don't understand what prompted Iran to do it. Anyway, in Afghanistan, resurgence of Tehrik-e-Taliban led to increased cross-border attacks from Afghan territories. Pakistan accused the Afghanistan of harboring TTT. This further strained our relations and complicating regional security dynamics. India, as usual, exploits this and creates problem for Pakistan, whether it is through their consulates or through their allow of RAW to use certain Iranian positions to work against Pakistan. Strained relations with the United States, sanctions and accusations. US imposed sanctions on entities from Pakistan and China related to the missile program development, especially of the long-range ballistic missile capable of reaching US. Pakistan denounced these sanctions as discriminatory and a threat to regional peace, asserting that its defense initiatives are solely to counter evolving threats from India. Frankly speaking, Pakistan protests that US does not criticize India despite its bigger missile and nuclear program. I suspect, and I say suspect with very timid approach, that sometime India had shared its nuclear and missile development during the civil program. So America is more confident about India and less confident about Pakistan's capabilities in this thing. So Indian developments in missile and nuclear, this is my opinion, I may be wrong, that America has given a de facto approval to India, while Pakistan's missile and nuclear programs were away from American focus and approval. So America is very uncomfortable. But I am amazed at the allegation that Pakistan can attack America. There is no desire on our side to target the US, yet apprehension remains. Security concern impacting Chinese investments. Attack on Chinese nationals, particularly those associated with CPAC, escalated in 2024. Incidents like killing of 2 Chinese engineers at Karachi airport prompted Beijing to demand enhanced security measures from Pakistan to protect its investment and citizens. You may agree that our law enforcement agencies have not exhibited full capability in protecting Chinese interests. I will refer also to the attack on Chinese teachers of Confucius Institute, Karachi University. The terror strategies and their conduct are getting better, while law enforcement agencies remain more visible but ineffective. Now, how the Baloch insurgents are so effective and our agencies are slow is a very, very big question. Chinese are not happy and they demand solid action. They are concerned but quiet. They need solid proof of our capability in protecting Chinese personnel and investments. We need very focused strategy to keep CPAC functional. It is the biggest investment in Pakistan, and its success will convey a good message to future FDIs. Ladies and gentlemen, The year 2024 was marked with significant political turmoil. The general elections held in February 8 were marred by dispute and allegations of rigging, leading to delays in results. Shehbaz Sharif, Prime Minister, assumed office for the second term on March 3rd, supported by a coalition of Muslim League and the People's Party. On March 10, President Asif Ali Zardari took office as president for the second term, succeeding President Arif Alvi. These political transitions were accompanied by ongoing protests and legal battles, contributing to an atmosphere of uncertainty. A large segment of population, especially the youth, do not accept these results. The social media had a field day, and despite having concerned departments to check the damage to the image of the government, it suffered. During the post-election protests, the country was seen as a repressive one. Our international image was greatly damaged. Economic challenges. Pakistan's economy grappled with significant hurdles. The country narrowly avoided defaulting on foreign debt payment in 2023, securing a 3 billion bailout and later a 7 billion loan from the IMF. While these measures provided temporary relief, the economy remains fragile with high inflation rates and substantial external debt obligations. In January 2024, the United Nations reported that Pakistan's economy was expected to face global challenges with modest GDP anticipated. Growth anticipated. The record inflation of 2023 made life of common people miserable. The reported single-digit inflation of 2024 did not provide due relief to common people. The middleman, the bankers, and the industrialists took away the greater profits. The biggest issue with the economy remained the management. The tax collection did not get the desired results. Grey and black economy continued to outperform the digitalized one. The non-formal economy remains out of control. Public is not concerned, surprisingly, with it, and very few in this country bother about it. The government itself is not ready to cut non-essential expenditures. The huge federal and provincial cabinet exhibits pomp and show and is often shown in the social media that draws the irk of the public. Security concerns. Security situation deteriorated with a notable increase in terrorist activities. 2,500 people were killed in terror attacks in 2024, a significant rise from the previous year. Tehreek-e-Taliban is blamed for it, and as we put pressure on Afghanistan, our relations with that country suffers. Then Pakistan had to navigate through a very complex landscape and it needs a very comprehensive strategies to address political instability, economic fragility, and security. Ladies and gentlemen, I have very few suggestions. Number one, we have to strengthen regional relationships. Economic ties with neighbors have to be improved, especially improving economic ties with India, which is very, very unreceptive of any suggestion from us. But nonetheless, we have to try and think out of the box. We have to facilitate peace in Afghanistan, play a very constructive role in Afghan stability, and to ensure regional peace and economic. See, just repeating that we have supported Afghanistan for 40 years with our blood and money, it will not help. Our narrative is not being accepted by our neighbors. Promote regional cooperation. We have to work with regional organizations like SAARC, ECO, SCO, and focus on trade, cultural exchanges. With monumental changes in Bangladesh, we may hope of a revival for SAARC, because it was BD which had opposed us initially. On economic diplomacy, we have to expand our trade relations beyond our traditional partners like China and Gulf countries to include Africa, ASEAN, and Latin America. Capitalize on CPAC to attract global investments, simplify our regulations, and improve ease of doing business to attract new investors. Balance our relations with superpowers. United Nations means with United States, we maintain constructive engagement in security and counter-terrorism and trade and avoiding over-reliance. See, we have a very strange complex that we are very important. Our strategic location is very important. We have so many minerals. All this have become a load on us. So we have to start building our new narrative. With China, we have to deepen strategic and economic ties while ensuring that agreements are mutually beneficial. Strangely, several agreements of CPAC are yet to be disclosed to the people. Those done in 2013, hardly anybody knows about it. Russia and EU expand cooperation in energy, trade, and defense sector to reduce dependence on single power. Promote Pakistan's soft power, cultural diplomacy, educational exchanges. Lot of Pakistani students are now traveling to different countries, to Turkey, to America, to Europe. We should also try to attract foreign students to Pakistan. Humanitarian initiative, lead in international disaster relief effort and climate change advocacy, adopt a very proactive and multilateral approach, engaging with United Nations, OIC, and other global organizations, support global issues like climate change, counterterrorism, and human rights, and align our policy with international priorities. Internal security, we have to tackle extremism and terrorism and project a stable image internationally. We have to develop skill diplomacy. Unfortunately, our diplomacy gets very little support internally and externally, but we need now to have, like other ministries, focus on foreign office and to produce better stuff than we have right now. Enhance public-private partnership and think tanks to shape informed and pragmatic foreign policy. And by pursuing these actions, Pakistan can enhance its global standing, build trust, and foster mutually beneficial relationships. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Saab. Ambassador Hasan Habib has given a detailed expose of the security challenges, the economic issues, the political challenges which Pakistan faces, and especially the intricate balance which Pakistan has sought to ensure in its foreign policy. I will now open the floor to questions.
Hello, my name is Safa, and I'm a researcher at this institute. I have a question for General Kidwai. My question is that cyber attacks have become a very significant threat in the past decade, and we have seen how warfare has shifted from kinetic operations to hybrid tactics, which include cyber warfare. And this evolution, I feel, poses significant risks to Pakistan's nuclear arsenal. So what are the implications of this shift for Pakistan's strategic stability? And how can we ensure the safety and reliability of our full spectrum deterrence, as you mentioned, in such a complex environment?
Thank you for the question. Although it's not specific to 2024, but generally speaking, you're absolutely right. Cyber warfare is a reality that we are living with for the past many years. It's not something that Pakistan can afford to ignore, particularly in its nuclear program. You have seen the examples in neighboring Iran, where cyber warfare has been used to inflict considerable damage, as we read, on Iran's nuclear program. And there's no reason why Pakistan should feel very comfortable that it can't happen to Pakistan. It can happen. Because cyber warfare is a very discreet and way of attacks. And one can take as many plausible, practical measures to counter that. And I can only reassure you that the Pakistani nuclear program, particularly because I speak on the nuclear program, so far experience shows that all the precautions and all the counter cyber steps that have been taken for the nuclear program, they seem to have worked. or maybe our adversaries have not attempted yet, perhaps. But I'm not aware of a single attempt, frankly, and I've been there for a long, long time, that an adversary attempted to attack Pakistan nuclear program. A test would have been that if there had been an attack and we had come out clean on that, that would have been a test. But since there has not been an attack, we can only test it by our own wargaming between two sides, like we do for normal wargaming between a blue land force and a Falkland force. That we continue to do, and the results that we find are quite reassuring. I think I'll leave it at that. But the threat is real, and as time passes, as the technology improves, it will only become more and more real and more strong.
I would like to ask you, the threat to Pakistan is from Israel or India?
The cyber, it could be from any direction. It could be from any direction. It could be from a unanimous source, anonymous source.
But in most of the cases, we have read that India actually is trying to, initiate the cyber warfare.
There have been stories of, people setting up hacking sites in Scandinavian countries. जिसका कोई source नहीं है. They're anonymous. You can't trace them. इतने डोजियर्स पाकिस्तान ने बना के दिए हैं कि ये यूरो समथिंग फलाना ग्रुप था जो ये कर रहा था. तो ये कहना कि इंडिया के बिल्कुल ईस्ट से आएगा ये अटैक, ये फिजिकल अटैक नहीं है, ये साइबर स्पेस का अटैक है. इट कैन कम फ्रॉम एनी डायरेक्शन एंड आई एम नॉट अ साइबर एक्सपर्ट पर से, but having experienced the installation of cyber countermeasures वगैरह in our own systems, what I can say is that it is something which is anonymous. First of all, I'll keep emphasizing on that. And to specify कि ये east से आएगा, कि west से आएगा, कि north south से आएगा, it is not easy. It is not possible.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Captain Masood. I'm British Merchant Naval LNG captain, appointed by the Nautical Institute of UK as a chairman for the Pakistan branch. So I have laconically speaking for the His Excellency Ambassador Saab. Just you said the Chinese are not happy with us. Can you kindly let us know who is happy with us?
I think I said particularly that no neighbor is happy with us except Arabian Sea.
I'm talking worldwide.
So
Worldwide, I'm talking.
I think there are certain corners where we have support. I have served in 7 different places, and I have felt that a lot of people are happy with Pakistan, and especially North Koreans were not unhappy with us.
That's a good one. Just, sir, briefly, just for General Kidwai Saab. Listen, we have been involved in many LNGs and the oil transformation from Russia in the past. With the sanctions on, there's no for us. So lots of jobs have gone for Pakistanis, including. But on the contrary, the India has no regards for any sanction from the US, and they became the biggest exporter of the Russian oil, even sold it to us. So where exactly we stand, why can't we follow the steps, or at least curtail them to the limit that we don't have to buy from India? So what's your stance, please, sir?
Actually, avoiding sanction is an art. I have seen in 2 of my postings, one was Iran and the second one was North Korea. Unfortunately, we have not learned this art properly. India awaits, all you have to do is to make companies which don't directly connect to your country, and you arrange transport and other things in a manner, especially banking, that you are not implicated. I think we will have to work very hard on learning how to avoid sanctions. In nuclear, I must say we have learned it, but in common trade and industry, I think we still have to do a lot of work. So we have to learn how to live with that, how to avoid transportation, to be connected, learn how to do shipments, how to make fake documents, banking transactions, and so on and so forth. So I think we have to do a lot of work in this field.
Assalamu alaikum. Syed, I'm a member of this institute. I just wanted to ask a question that you kind of hinted at, which was actually the third part of the equation. You mentioned the dichotomy of the United States and China and Pakistan's position. But I've noted, as you've kind of hinted also in both of your comments, about the increasing role of the Gulf states and how SIFC was actually pretty much designed to engage them. We know recently the Saudi Crown Prince announced $600 billion investment with the US. How is that going to play in 2025 for us? Are we going to fall more towards the Chinese camp? The Gulf countries going to pull the strings? I'd like some comments on that. Thank you.
There is very difficult to attract foreign investments in Pakistan, especially when you had 2,500 terrorist deaths in your country. Nobody is coming to us. So for future, I think we first have to do what our foreign office people always try to indicate. Focus on your house, clean your house, organize your house, and then we can go out, look for investors. So Saudis can invest whatever amount in US, or China can invest any amount in Iran. We first have to find out regulations and practices. We have all the laws, fortunately, but in practice, when some investors come, I remember, it's not very recent, from the 90s that CPPCC chairman came to Pakistan, and from Lahore when we arrived here, the security people were all hanging out of their cars left and right, and the chairman called me and said, please keep them away. So our security, as I said very politely, is visible but not effective. We have to first put our house in order and then look for the investment from outside.
Assalamu alaikum, Syed Khalid. My question is to actually both Dr. Masooma and General Kidwai. During your presentation, you made a reference that Suparco took off after you took it from the cabinet division, and she was smiling then. So what's the real story behind it? Civil-military relations.
I made that statement. What is the question? What's the story behind it? I don't think you were the cabinet secretary at the time. You were? I don't remember too. But whoever, there was somebody who was cabinet secretary. There was a cabinet division, always has been. Story Suparco ki unfortunate hai. I won't say hai. Suparco was, I think, established sometime in the mid-50s, perhaps, or the early 60s. Or intent must have been very good, I'm sure. Space program, us waqt Sputnik and other things were happening in the world. So it was an early step that the government of Pakistan took at that point in time. And it was a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, the placement was in the cabinet division. And cabinet division, as Dr. Sahiba knows, all of us know, is loaded with a loads and loads of things. So focus जो है space program को देना, वो probably possible नहीं था. And therefore, because of a lack of focus, the various chairmen who came, in their wisdom, they continued to make programs which were probably not mission oriented. I'm not sure whether there was a clear mission or not, but that is the past, and I don't have any personal knowledge of that period, because when I became the DG SPD formed in sometime in early '99. One of the earliest things that we realized was that the nuclear program has a very strong linkages with the space program. All over the world it has. There are numerous peaceful uses of the space, but then there are also strategic uses of the space program. And therefore, this rudderless Suparco, in a sense, which was lying in this division of the government of Pakistan, we took the step and requested. And fortunately, the environment was conducive because of General Musharraf being there. We asked for it. He agreed, and I think within a week or so, the notification वगैरह हो गया, and we got Suparco under wings. We had to reorient it towards delivering on what we wanted it to deliver. Or it has taken almost 20 years now to bring Suparco at a point where now you are reading success stories. A number of satellites are being launched. There's Space Vision 2047, which was approved in 2011. And by and large, we are following the vision that was specified in that. So the story behind it is something that in 60s when it was formed, the mission that probably was assigned to it along, and the mission doesn't come empty. It has to be supported by funding. And I'm not sure whether Suparco was getting the right amount of fund, because when we got it, it was in a pathetic stage. And we had to pump a lot of money in it to simply for 5 to 7 years, simply to bring it up in terms of technology, equipment, manpower, HR, etc., to come to a level where it could assume the responsibility that we wanted it to assume. So but today, Alhamdulillah, Suparco is doing well.
Well, in the cabinet division, we were not scientists.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Maliha and I'm a researcher here. Hello. Yeah. So I actually have two questions, one from General Kidwai and one from Ambassador Hasan Habib. My question from Ambassador Hasan Habib is that I appreciate the observation that Pakistan's reliance on its geostrategic significance is turning into both a source of pride and a burden. While it's clear that Pakistan needs to take more practical steps to strengthen its regional position, isn't this geostrategic importance still its key avenue for progress? Considering its efforts through various connectivity projects, why do you think these initiatives are not yielding favorable outcomes for Pakistan?
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we place too much of our currency on our geostrategic geolocation and things like that. Yes, it is very important, but see what we are doing with CPAC. How many ships arrive at Gwadar since 2017 when it was completed? Recently, we have seen some progress like Tajikistan and the Central Asian states. They are literally pushing our people to work. So now we are more connected despite unstable Afghanistan because of Ukraine war. Central Asians have lost their infrastructure, export infrastructure, so they are pushing us. Unfortunately, our location is very good. We can connect Russia, China, and Middle East, Africa. That is there, but our policies and our actions are not supporting that dream or vision that we have. So I think we will have to, as I said, act very, very, how to say, intelligently and smartly to cash our location and our position. And especially, this is what I'm saying since 2016 when I retired, we have to work something which we say the Eastern alignment of CPAC. Unless we allow India to go to Central Asia via us, not bypassing Pakistan, CPAC's utility will not be fully utilized. Thank you.
In reference to what Mr. John Piner said, my question is, to what extent is the United States concerned over Pakistan's advancing nuclear capabilities influenced by its broader strategic rivalry with China, given Pakistan's deepening alignment with Beijing, with Pakistan possessing an estimated arsenal of 170 nuclear warheads and China expanding its nuclear stockpile to approximately 410 warheads? Could this alignment and strategic cooperation shape US perceptions of Pakistan as a security threat, particularly in light of its growing missile capabilities in China's BRI project? Okay.
I think I addressed the growing missile capability, the last part of your question that you've addressed. I'm not sure from where the US has got its data. I'm not sure, because it simply is non-existent. Pakistan, I said, would be out of its mind to think that we should be getting ranges to attack the USA. 12,000 kilometers. I'm mentioning 2750 for Shaheen 3 and 2,000 kilometers for the Ababil MIRV. कहाँ 2000 और 2750, कहाँ 12,000. I don't know, frankly, who is feeding this intelligence system, that it should come out so publicly with this kind of a charge. Absurd, that's why I'm using the word absurd. Does it make sense at all that Pakistan will make a 12,000 kilometers range missile to strike the US? What for? What on earth for? Are we mad? Are we out of our mind? We have stated that Pakistan's nuclear and missile program, where was it born? Why was it born? 1972. It was a reaction to the 1971 debacle. South Asia, India, that is the focus and always has been. And that is why there's a self-imposed restriction that we are keeping, that we are covering only the eastern and southern dimensions of India and some of its outlying territories like Nicobar and Andaman Islands, because India is building strategic bases there. Having covered that much, which is Pakistan's strategic need, to obviate the possibility of India having a land-based second strike capability. Other than that, Pakistan has always stated, and physically the ranges indicate that other than South Asia, there is no other interest of the Pakistan nuclear program. The rationale, the reason data for Pakistan nuclear program is South Asia. Of course, we got a result before us that since 1971, the deterrence has held and it works apparently. That it has deflected, like I said, to the western border with the cost-free, options available to India to continue war by other means. That's a different question. But talking of the missile ranges and the US getting alerted about it, etc., I think there's some very major misunderstanding in this. And then to go public on that, something that just doesn't make sense, it beats me.
Thank you, Dr. Masuma. My name is Hasan, Director at the Center for Law and Policy. My question is from Ambassador Habib. Iran has been mentioned a couple of times in this conversation. One of the key issues that we are facing right now is the completion of the IP gas pipeline. And this issue was also raised last year when President Raisi was visiting Islamabad as well. And by all accounts, Iran is not happy with how Pakistan has proceeded with the completion of the contract. Naturally so, because of expected or anticipated US sanctions, which US could impose on us should we carry through with the execution of the contract. So moving forward, how in 2025, because we're also seeing a request for arbitration on the contract, how do we see Pakistan navigating through this challenge where on one side, we could be looking at sanctions. On the other side, we could be seeing damages which could result in billions of dollars of penalties by an international court.
It's a very, very tricky question, and I think one of the biggest challenge for Pakistan that we face in this subject. Based on my personal observation, we as a nation are very bad in drafting agreements. Whoever has designed it should have put a very strong clause of force majeure. With US sanctions or no international lender giving money, how can we complete that project? So this could have been in their minds of the planner, but nonetheless, while we are here, US is our major trade partner. We cannot annoy US. We cannot afford more US sanctions. Plus, if US is unhappy, then IMF and World Bank also look on the other side. And other friends that regularly support Pakistan, the Middle Eastern, will also not support us. So there is no way we can go ahead with Iran-Pakistan gas pipeline if US is not happy. But I think there is a way. We can still make a very good case and take a one-time exemption from US. But that is a difficult work. But that is the only way out of that. Thank you.
General Kidwai, I am a member of this institute, and my question is to you. You rightly said that Pakistan is a mature nuclear state, and we have this institutionalized mechanism of handling our nuclear assets. We have this command and control structure or organization, and I'm sure that Americans do know it. because they are a very vibrant society. They have a research and debating culture over there. And we can rest assured when Americans say something, they always have that 360-degree view before them. So why are they saying this, that our missile program is a threat to them? Is there this underlying concern that Americans feel someday Pakistan's nuclear assets or arsenal might fall into wrong hands? Because China aspect of my question has been dealt by our colleague. So now my question is this American concern that someday, although I don't think it's I think it's an unfounded concern or fear, but do you think it is on their mind that someday it may go into wrong hands?
I frankly, this is something that we have lived with, this particular fear that you are expressing, the Americans and the world. There was a time, I think in the immediate aftermath of the Afghan attack, American attack in Afghanistan post 9/11, for some years there was this mantra, the Pakistani nuclear weapons falling into wrong hands. Our command control system was newly established. The Indian was not. And with the passage of time, it simply went from strength to strength. And I think we passed that period fairly comfortably. I went around speaking to a lot of people and explaining the command control system as a mission to give comfort to the capitals that mattered and to the government people and the think tanks that mattered. But my speaking was not going to be enough just because I go and give assurances. They have their own national technical means, NTMs, which includes human resource, it includes satellites, it includes imagery, all kinds of intelligence estimates. And they must have come to a conclusion that Pakistan's command control system is now is strong, and they have then said it in so many words. There are statements all the way from the President of the United States, Obama included, Bush included. And as of today, I think that issue is a non-issue. Over sustained hard work, the amount of funding that has gone into professionally organizing nuclear security in Pakistan is something that I think is unmatchable. There was a book by, I'm forgetting the name, it's a very famous book, David Sanga. And he says that he has written that the people in Washington are perplexed as to how seriously Pakistan has taken its nuclear security. No other country, and these are his words, no other country in the world has taken nuclear security so seriously. So having invested so much, I think I'm very confident that that is not the US fear, that this will, that by some stretch of imagination, fall into wrong hands. I think that period is behind us. When terrorism was at its peak somewhere in 2010, 2008, etc., I think that is behind us. So those fears, there was an occasion, if you recall, Bonaire, and the word that got around was 60 kilometers from the capital. Swat was on fire and things like that were happening. But after sustained military operations, there was a pushback by the army, and all those areas were then contained, and with the result that that threat also evaporated. So today, I don't think that that threat is weighing on their mind.
I did want to ask, but okay, I'll be quick. I just wanted to ask, why does Pakistan keep undermining its relationships with all of its friends, America, Afghanistan, China? And is there a way that we can stop this pattern from happening again and again and rebuilding trust? Because we've lost all our friends, like we discussed earlier.
But how does Pakistan undermine its relations? I don't really make sense of your question, but Ambassador Sir.
Madam has correctly said undermining is a difficult word to explain. But yes, we have faults in our system. Our inconsistency irks people. Like while I was in Iran in 97 to 2000, whenever there was a killing of an Iranian, our leadership was very strongly responding and say we will punish the culprits in 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 9 weeks, giving time schedules which we could not follow. So the Iranians were very unhappy on that. If we had said that, look, our judicial system is slow, we will take action, and we took action ultimately. Our statements and our inconsistency is, I think, the real reason that our neighbors are not very happy with us. Plus, there are certain forces in Pakistan who create their own narratives and create in a very strong manner that it appears that they are stronger than the government. I think we have to, as I repeatedly say, put our house in order so that these type of statements don't go everywhere and create a very bad image of our nation and the country. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to now wrap up this session, which has been very interesting, very informative, and it has addressed a range of issues. So many issues that I won't be able to summarize them, but the whole panorama, I should say, of Pakistan's nuclear program, its nuclear security, its nuclear maturity, good events, bad events, good news and bad news, which General Khalid Kidwai talked about. Also about Pakistan's space program, the way that we have built it up under the leadership of its scientists. And of course, there have been negative events, security challenges, economic issues, economic challenges, and the intricate balance which Pakistan has sought to ensure in its foreign policy. Tensions with its neighbors, which Ambassador Saab has pointed out. But what I will take from this session, which is really laughable, is that Pakistan's nuclear program, missile program, can hit the United States of America. So on this note, thank you very much for being such a wonderful audience, and do come to our next program.